Hello Nidorinas and Nidorinos, I'm KingNido and today it is the Turrfield Ebonies going up against the Olivine Raiders, and as they have a look at their opening hands, let's have a look at this tale of the tape as the Raiders have suffered their first ever defeat in the PokeType League TCG, but not just that, it was a clean sweep, so they need to prove now that they can respond to such a loss, but the Turrfield Ebonies are coming in trying to capitalize as they want to get back to victory road. So with that said, let us know in the comments below who you think is going to win this matchup. Will it be the grass decks? Will it be the metal decks? Let's go!
3, 2, 1, go!
And it is going to be that Pollen Puff deck, moving that Combi into the active spot for the Turrfield Ebonies. It's the Skarmory from the Stark Mountain deck of the Olivine Raiders going into their active spot, and both sides only have one active Pokemon. We can see that Professor's Research in the hand of the Ebonies as they do pull the Blossom, and they are going to play that Professor's Research trying to get another 2 cards. Well, they will definitely get another 2 cards, which are the Vespiquen and the Cherrim. They don't get a basic Pokemon, they do put the Rocky Helmet onto the Combi however, and it is going to be all they can do as they send it over to the Olivine Raiders, who do pull the Magnemite. They've got a Pokeball, but they're not worried about that. They've got the Lumberry. They are about to make Skarmory's attack do 50 damage, and it only requires 1 energy, which means they are about to win this game at the earliest opportunity because they have taken out that Combi and there is no bench for this Pollen Puff deck, even with that 20 damage being done in return by the Rocky Helmet, and the Raiders, just like that, have taken game 1. And incredibly so, we are already into game 2, and regardless of the outcome of this matchup, we will still play the game 3 because it does count towards our leaderboard, but it is that Masquerade Ball deck for the Turrfield Ebonies. They've got the Kricketot going into the active spot. It is the Dialga for the Raiders from the Eternal Time deck, and fortunately for the Ebonies, it will take more than 1 energy for that Dialga to do 100 damage, as it is the Kricketune pulled for the Ebonies. They're going to play the Pokeball, but incredibly, we're already into game 2. They do get the Roselia, so fortunately, they're also going to have a basic Pokemon on the bench, because if you have no Pokemon on your bench, you automatically lose, as we just saw happen in game 1. It is, well, after your active Pokemon gets eliminated, in case anyone tries to spin that, but it is going to be the Armor Fossil going onto the bench, the Dialga getting its first energy with the Rocky Helmet being placed on it. The Ebonies have to try and win these next 2 games to upset the Raiders. That is the perfect start, though, that the Raiders needed after that clean sweep defeat last round. The Sprigatito pulled by the Ebonies, and the Ebonies can now start evolving their Pokemon with that Kricketune that can go on to the Kricketot. They've got the Roselia and they've got the Roserade in hand. They've also got the Floragato and the Meowscarada. Now they can't play them this turn as the Sprigatito was only just played, but they're not going to evolve the Kricketot yet. They're going with that Bug Bite. They're going on the offensive. It does do 20 damage to the Dialga, but it takes 20 damage in return from the Rocky Helmet. As it comes back to the Raiders, they do get the Giant Cape. And they do get that Shieldon online. They've already got the Bastiodon in hand, plus they've got that Adamant who can reduce damage taken by these metal Pokemon by 20. And that Shieldon's online, but it is Dialga getting its 2nd of 3rd required energy, so they can go for that Time Mash. It does come back over to the Ebonies, who pull their 2nd Meowscarada, but surely now they're going to evolve that Kricketot into the Kricketune. We do see the Floragato, and here it is, the Kricketune is online. It does take a 2nd energy to go for this Entrancing Melody, but it will also leave Dialga confused, so it may not even be able to go on the offensive. But there is that 50 damage being done to Dialga here, and it only has 50 health remaining as it does that 20 damage in return to Kricketune, and the Raiders pull their Professor's Research. So before evolving that Shieldon, they're going to play the Professor's Research to get 2 cards out of their deck. They get the X-Speed and the Dialga, that 2nd one in hand, but there it is, that Time Mash is now set up for the Dialga. They will have to flip a coin, they will require a heads, so they can go on the offensive. If it is a tails, as we see, it is going to do nothing. This is fantastic for the Ebonies because this will free up Kricketune to go on the offensive. The 2nd Roselia has been pulled, and they are thinking of where to place this Grass Energy, going with the Floragato. Now Meowscarada is coming online. It only requires 2 energy, as does the Roserade. The Entrancing Melody will continue, and it will take Dialga off the table. The Ebonies have taken the first point here in game 2. And they won't have to contend with that Rocky Helmet now also going into the discard pile with Dialga, but now they have to deal with the Bastiodon. It also requires 3 energy, but it does have that guarded grill, and when Pokemon attack it, it will be a coin flip. If it's a heads from the Olivine Raiders, that damage will be reduced by 100, and there's no Pokemon on the side of the Ebonies that do more than 100 at the moment, as they do get that first energy onto the Bastiodon. They're thinking about whether or not they want to finish their turn, and that is exactly what they're going to do. Sending it over to the Ebonies, who do pull a Pokeball. They can get another basic Pokemon out of their deck. It will be a Kricketot or a Sprigatito, and it is the Kricketot being pulled. They still have one empty slot on the bench that they can go with as they get an energy onto the Roserade. Here is the coin flip from the Raiders, and they get the head, so it will reduce that damage taken by 100. However, it will still leave Bastiodon confused as it does come back over to the Raiders. They still need another 2 energy onto the Bastiodon as they pull their second one as well. They've got a second Armor Fossil in hand, but they don't have the second shield on right now. And they are going to end their turn. They've still got that Adamant they can play. The Ebonies do pull a Cyrus, but that Dialga has not taken any damage, so they can't drag that into the active spot. However, the Ebonies are going to get another energy on to the Roserade, and they're switching out the Kricketune. They want to ensure that they can get that poison status condition onto the Bastiodon regardless of this coin flip. But it is the Tails, so they will also get 50 damage with that Poisonous Whip onto the Bastiodon, and it is left with that poison status condition to do the additional 10 damage in between turns. And now the Raiders getting that third energy onto the Bastiodon. With this headbang, it does 80 damage, so it won't even take out the Roserade, but it's also in a confused state. They do flip their heads, fortunately, so it will still go on the offensive, leaving Roserade with only 20 health remaining as that poisoning continues to chip away at Bastiodon. The Ebonies do pull their second Kricketune as well, and they are going to get a second energy onto the Meowscarada, who has 140 health. And they're thinking about how they want to approach this. Whether or not they are willing to drop a point, but no, they don't want to. They are going to switch out the Roserade. They move the Meowscarada into the active spot, going for the Fighting Claws. It will be that coin flip again, and it is a heads once again for the Raiders. So this will do nothing to the Bastiodon, but that 10 damage being eaten away by that poisoning as the second Bronzong has been pulled for the Olivine Raiders, and they're starting to set up this benched Dialga. And they almost went to finish their turn without going on the attack, but fortunately they did remember, and they are going to go on the offensive. But again, that confusion prevents Bastiodon from doing any damage, whereas that poisoning once again doing 10 more. The Ebonies pulling their second their second Roserade, but that second Roselia, they're hovering over the bench, and they are going to place it down. So they want the Roserade over the Kricketune, knowing it's got that 100 health with that poison as well. Another coin flip, and this time it's the Tails from the Raiders. That Fighting Claws does do 60 damage. The poisoning will do an additional 10. Bastiodon has 20 health remaining. It is only a matter of time before the Ebonies get their second point. They are going to get that Bronzor that they just pulled onto the bench. They're also going to get the Armor Fossil in hope they can get the second shield on. Here comes this headbang once again, remembering that Bastiodon is confused, and it's a Tails again. So Meowscarada is going to avoid taking any damage whatsoever, and regardless of whether or not it hits this attack as they pull their second Sprigatito, that Bastiodon will not make it past the next turn. They will not get to use it, will the Raiders, as the Ebonies get another energy onto that full health Roserade. And here comes the coin flip, and it is the Tails, so the Meowscarada is going to be the one taking down the Bastiodon, which allows them to maximize their damage. And there's 2 points for the Ebonies now over the Raiders, who are yet to get a single one in this second game. This is what the Ebonies need to take it to a game 3. The Raiders trying to turn it around. They do pull the shield on. They've got the Dialga in the active spot, who only requires 1 more energy. For this Time Mash, it does do 100 damage. And they're going to play the Adamant, so it will reduce damage that this Dialga takes in the coming turn by 20. They also get the Bronzong. They're thinking of getting the Bronzong. They do pause, they're having a look at both of them, and they do go with the Psychic attacking Bronzong, not the Psychic type, not to be confused, as the Time Mash 100 damage onto the Meowscarada, leaving it with only 40 health. And they flip the Tails though, so it won't be able to go for the Time Mash on the next turn. This is again fantastic for the Ebonies because the Meowscarada will be safe. And they do get a third energy onto the Meowscarada. They're going to retreat it. They want the Roserade in the active spot, knowing that it cannot take any damage in the next turn. It will be able to get that poisoning onto the Dialga with this poison whip doing 30 damage thanks to the Adamant reducing what it takes. But there is that 10 additional damage from the poisoning. The Raiders, they can't do anything with that Dialga other than retreat it if they so choose to. but they do have their second Bastiodon with that guarded grill online. The Raiders need to think about this. Are they willing to let the Dialga just sit there and take more damage, or will they retreat it and try and win this game 2 and not risk taking it to a game 3? They do see that they've got 3 cards left in their deck. They're going to play the Iono, so they're going to reshuffle their 2 cards. The 5 cards of the Ebonies go back into their deck. They will replace those cards, matching that number for each of them. The Pokeball and the X-Speed for the Raiders, the Kricketot and the Kricketune, plus the Professor's Research in hand for the Ebonies, as it is the Pokeball being played to get that second Bronzor out for the Raiders, and now they've only got 2 cards in their deck, so it has thinned their deck by 1. And now it's a moment of truth. Do they want to retreat the Dialga? This could buy them time. They can move that Bastiodon into the active spot. It has 160 health. It is much harder for the Ebonies to take that down than it is taking down the Dialga. But no, they do choose to end their turn. This could be a crucial error. The Ebonies have an opportunity to capitalize. They play the Professor's Research. They have the Meowscarada right there. They pull the Cyrus and the Giant Cape. They have emptied their deck. They get an energy onto that active Roserade, and now they realize surely what is going on. They can win this game. It's very uncommon for sides to not go straight for the win, so I'm not even sure the Ebonies realize how in control they are right now, because the Fighting Claws does 60 damage, leaving Dialga with only 10 health, and the Poisoning will finish it off, and the Ebonies are taking this to a game 3 after not dropping a single point here in game 2. Unfortunately for the Raiders, they were able to easily seal up game 1. They need to seal up game 3 here to take the series win. The Ebonies, though, trying to bring it back with their Flower Paradise deck. They are moving that Morotom into the active spot. It is the Varoom for the Mining Melancholy deck of the Olivine Raiders into their active spot. But here we go, our game 3 decider. And the Ebonies do pull the Grottle, but they've got the Pokeball, they've already got a Torterra, and they get the second Morotom, so they don't get the Turtwig. I was well prepared to say that they were going to pull the Turtwig. That would have been fantastic, believing in the heart of the cards. As they move that Giant Cape onto the Morotom in the active spot, taking its health up to 100, they do send it over to the Raiders, who are going to pull their X-Speed. Now we can see they've got a Revelry in hand. They've got their Giant Cape and Rocky Helmet, and they go with the Rocky Helmet onto the Varoom. They want to make the Ebonies reluctant to go on the offensive, but they themselves can go for this headbutt that will do 10 damage to the Morotom. So a little bit of chip damage there, but it comes back over to the Ebonies. The Rotom does require 2 energy as they do pull their Dawn. It allows them to move an energy from a benched Pokemon to their active Pokemon, but they do get a first one here onto that active Rotom, sending it back over to the Raiders, who do pull their Professor's Research. Now they may be reluctant to move that Revelry online just yet, because it does require 3 energy for the Spinning Drift, as they get their second one plus a second Varoom thanks to that Professor's Research. And they get a second energy onto the active Varoom as well. They move the Giant Cape onto the benched one. So a lot of setup going on here in the early stages of game 3, but the headbutt, another 10 damage onto the Morotom, coming back over to the Turrfield Ebonies, and now they have the Turtwig. That Torterra can do 150 damage with the Frenzy Plant, but does require 4 energy, so in the meantime they continue to set up the active Rotom with the energy cutoff. It does 30 damage here to the Varoom, but this coin flip, if they get a heads, unfortunately they get a tails. The Raiders would have had to discard an energy from that Varoom, which would have been fantastic for the Raiders to prevent, for the Ebonies to prevent the Raiders from going for the evolution. They do play the potion they've just pulled though to restore 20 health for that active Varoom. And here it is, the Revelry with that Spinning Drift coming online. It does 70 damage, so it can take out the Morotom, but they've made a crucial mistake. They get an energy onto that benched Varoom. This could cost the Raiders. What have they done? They've started setting up that Varoom 1 turn too early. They cannot go on the offensive just yet. The Ebonies, this has bought them a turn to potentially get an energy off of that active Varoom. You cannot let up for a second. You need to think about what you're doing as they're starting to set up that Grottle that is now online. They're going to play the Pokemon Communication. Surely it will be that second Grottle they've got in hand that they move back into the deck, and they will shuffle, get in another Pokemon card out, and they get the second Torterra. Not quite what they needed. You have to think they wanted one of those 2 Shaman, as they are going to go for the energy cutoff once again. 30 damage onto the Revelry once again with a coin flip, and this time they do get the heads. The Raiders with a massive mistake, as Revelry does lose one of its 2 energy and it needs 3. It is the Mawile being pulled for the Raiders here. And now they're just concerned with setting up that benched Revelry after a crucial error. This could allow the Ebonies to actually take the first point here in Game 3. The more while now online, the Ebonies get the Professor's Research. They get another 2 cards out of their deck. And they get the Pokemon Center Lady and the X-Speed. Still no Fragrant Flower Garden from those Shaman in hand just yet. But now the Torterra is online. It has 2 energy currently on it as well. And the Ebonies continuing with the energy cutoff, 30 damage onto this active Revelry. And another head, so now there is no energy on this Revelry. It requires 2 energy if it wants to retreat, but they do still have that X-Speed in hand. As the Raiders do pull the Mars, this would cause the Ebonies to shuffle their hand into their deck, pulling the cards relative to their remaining points, and they've got 3 still to get. As they do get an energy onto that bench Revelry, now having 3, the Ebonies pull the Cyrus. And they are going to play that Pokemon Center Lady to try and restore the health of the Monotype. And this is a clever play because they don't want that Monotype to be eliminated from the Rocky Helmet. So they're trying to buy themselves a bit of time to continue setting up this Torterra. They go for another energy cutoff here onto the Revelry, 30 damage, leaving it with only 10 health remaining, and the Monotype is still in this match with 30 health remaining. The Raiders have pulled their second Adamant, as now they're getting an energy onto that active Revelry. And they are going to play the X-Speed. This will bring the retreat cost down by 1, so now it's only a 1 energy retreat cost. They do discard the energy they just put onto it to get that full setup Revelry with 130 health remaining into the active spot, and this spinning drift will free it up to take this Monotype out. But not just that, they will get the flip a coin. If this is heads, and it is, this Revelry will take no damage in this next turn, as well as no effects. This is not good for the Ebonies, because that means they can't go with this Frenzy Plant just yet, and in doing so, they're going to move their second Monotype into the active spot. They do pull their second Grottle. They still don't have that second Turtwig in hand though, and they are going to get a first energy by the looks of it onto this Monotype here. That is fantastic for the Raiders. That spinning drift has bought them an extra turn so that Revelry doesn't take any damage. That is what they needed after that crucial error earlier on. Almost cost them that benched Revelry. They do pull the Registeel on this turn, and they immediately move it into that final bench position. It does have that Metal Claw. It does 90 damage for 3 energy, but this spinning drift will continue from the Revelry. They need to flip another heads, but not before they do 70 damage to that Monotype. And they get another heads. Things are going the Raiders' way right now with these coin flips. But it is the second Turtwig being pulled for the Ebonies, and they immediately move it onto the bench here. And they think of moving an energy onto it. They're thinking about their options. They can set up this Turtwig if they so choose. They don't want to make any rushed mistakes. We've seen what they can do. And they do get a first energy onto the Turtwig. This Monotype sitting in the active spot is an easy target for the Raiders. They do end their turn. The Raiders are free to take their second point as they pull their X-Speed. And they continue to set up this Registeel with the Metal Claw, getting its second energy, another spinning drift from this Revelry. And again, they get this coin flip potential. They want the heads. And for the third time, this Revelry has taken the heads in the coin flip. It is immune to any incoming damage or effects for this next turn. So that Torterra is still just sitting in the bench position, but they have moved it to the active slot. They have just pulled their X-Speed as well. The Grottle is now online. And they have got the Torterra set up. They won't want to retreat this. It's got 4 energy on it, but its retreat cost is also 4. They are going to play the Cyrus, however, so they're going to drag that Revelry, that is taking damage into the active spot, and this Frenzy Plant can go on the offensive now, taking this Revelry off the board. And that is the first one for the Ebonies, but again, on the next turn, they cannot use this Frenzy Plant, and that could be the thing that matters most. This frees up the Raiders to move any Pokemon into the active spot. They can use the Registeel or the Revelry. They're thinking about how they want to do this. Now they don't want to rush any decisions, but they are having their timer tick down here. They need to make a decision. They go with the Registeel. It can do 90 damage. It is the more while being pulled for the Olivine Raiders. But They're not worried about that right now. They're just worried about setting up this Metal Claw. They look through their hand in case there's any decisions they want to make, but here it is, the Metal Claw. 90 damage to the Torterra, leaving it with only 50 health remaining. This is great for the Raiders as it comes back to the Ebonies. They get the Shaman finally with that Fragrant Flower Garden that can restore damage by 10 from any of their Pokemon that have taken damage so far, which is on that active Torterra as the second Torterra is now online. And there is the Fragrant Flower Garden getting that 10 health restored, but it's only back to 60, which means Torterra is still an easy target. They are going to play an X speed. This will reduce the retreat cost by 1 for the Torterra, so now it's only a 3 energy retreat cost. They do have a second X speed, but it looks like they're not going to use that here. They are still weighing up their options. Do they want to use that second X speed? They're hovering it over, they're thinking about it. It's Flower Paradise. They're trying to bring this game back, and they are going to use that second X speed. So now it's only 2 energy retreat cost for the Torterra. They move the second Torterra into the active spot. It can go on the offensive, but it doesn't have enough energy on it just yet. But they have this Dawn in hand, so they can move an energy from the bench Torterra to the active one. But that only gets it up to its 3rd energy. They still require 1 more, and this will free up the Raiders to go on the offensive. Raiders, having just pulled their own Dawn, are thinking about how they want to approach this oncoming turn. They've got their Adamant looking through the hand, and they're just going with the Metal Claw now. 90 damage onto the active Torterra, bringing it down to 60 health. The Ebonies have an empty hand, but they do pull the Rocky Helmet, trying to make the opposition reluctant to go on the offensive. They play the Fragrant Flower Garden, restoring a bit of health from both Torterras, getting one up to 80, getting the other up to 70. It is the active one with 80 health, and it is free now to go for the Frenzy Plant because it has that 4th energy and 150 damage to take the Registeel off the board. It is a 2-point v 2-point game. The next point will secure the victory after they have both taken one of these matches so far. This is the deciding point of this series. The second Registeel has been pulled for the Raiders as they just moved that Revelry into the active spot. They're looking through their hand about how they may want to approach this now. They know that Torterra can't use that Frenzy Plant on this turn. And this frees them up to go for another Spinning Drift, bringing the Torterra down to only 10 health remaining. And with this coin flip, they flip their heads, which means this Revelry is safe from taking damage. Now the Ebonies have pulled their final card, which is their second Shaman. Now they can use both these Fragrant Flower Gardens in the same turn, so they can restore 20 health in total for both of these Pokemon, which means one Torterra, the active Torterra, will get back up to 30 health. That is not enough to outlast the Revelry. It is the bench Torterra that has 90 health remaining. They need to think about how to approach this because the Shaman cannot outlast a hit from the Revelry. They are going to retreat their Torterra, bringing that second Torterra into the active spot, and they do get the Rocky Helmet onto it. They have no other cards they can play. They have played every possible card that they can. Now it is all about decision making. The Raiders do pull the Adamant. The Mars is pointless now, and they do get a second energy onto that benched Registeel, but that Spinning Drift potential could keep them safe, but instead, no, they see it. They've got the Wind Claws. They're going to retreat the Revelry. They just played an X-Speed. They are going to move the Registeel into the active spot. It's only got 2 metal energy on it, but with the Dawn, they can get an energy from the bench to the Registeel, and it can go immediately on the offensive, and the Raiders hold on in this final game to take the Torterra down and show that they can respond to a loss. It was fortunate in game 1 that the Pollen Puff deck practically bricked, allowing that Skarmory to go on the offensive, but they were able to hold on, keeping their position on top of the leaderboard as next round they are going up against the reigning champions, the Melamela Rumbles, whereas the Ebonies, they will be going up against the Kitakami Rogues, but until then, Nidorinos, thank you so much for watching. Let us know in the comments below what you thought the best card was, and if you enjoyed what you saw, please leave a like, share, subscribe, but more importantly, always remember, send thanks, and I'll see you when you see me.